Chapter 31. Home. Soon the Bell family was up, the three children dashing about looking for their winter pants and warmest boots. It had snowed. The first snow. They couldn't wait to go out in it. Dr. Bell and his wife got ready too. They also were excited to see their new place, dressed in winter. Finally, all the scarves and mittens were found, the laces tied and coats zipped, and the family of five stepped out onto the porch. "Morning," called Stanley as he came out of the barn. He was heading toward them with a pail. "Morning, Stanley," Jane Bell called back. "It snowed. Hey, what you got there?" "Fresh milk," cried Stanley, "from your cow." Jane Bell looked at her husband, and he looked at her. Each expected to see a contained smile on the other's face, a tiny reveal of the surprise they'd kept hidden. But neither of them saw that. Stanley saw their bewildered expressions too, and suddenly wondered, but no, how could the animals have just arrived here out of nowhere in a snowstorm? Better come see," he said, turning back to the barn. Stanley pulled open a door and held it for the family. The bells tromped in, and there were the animals, munching hay, sucking up water from the buckets Stanley had filled for them, swishing their tails and breathing their sweet, warm breath. They were real and alive, and in the Bell's own barn. The sheep let out a low baa by way of hello. "Look," laughed Henry, the 6-year-old, taking his mother's hand. "Oh, Daddy, thank you!" cried May, throwing her arms around Dr. Bell's substantial waist. "Oh my gosh, look, there's a baby goat!" This was way better than any snow. "Wow," breathed Helena, the oldest. She was transfixed, staring at Tug and Pull. "They are beautiful." "Dear?" asked Jane Bell. "Did you—" Dr. Bell shook his head slightly, a confused smile on his face. "They're for us, Daddy?" asked Helena. "We're keeping them, right?" "If we can," said Dr. Bell, smoothing his beard. "Then we most certainly will." The Bells thought about putting an ad in the local gazette, "Found Animals." But no matter how they considered wording it, it sounded ludicrous. People would think they were crazy. They decided just to listen to the local news, read the papers, and check the town bulletin boards regularly. And if they heard anything about missing animals, they would follow up. They didn't want to steal anyone's animals, but they hoped not to lose them. Right away, it had felt like the animals belonged there. First days and then weeks went by, and the Bells became part of the town framework. They learned the history of the area from Noreen Clausen, the town clerk. They got to know everyone as they filled up their tank at Gus's Gas, and they found out where to buy Dolly Maccabee's famous donuts, once even bumping into the lady herself, which was a little like meeting a celebrity. But the Bells never did hear anything about the animals. Not one mention ever came up. It was as if the animals had dropped from the sky with the snow. "This place is so cool," said May, leaning over the edge of her bunk to talk to Helena below. Tonight they realized that they'd had the animals a whole month. They were staying. I thought I'd like it here, but I didn't expect to like it this much." "Me either," said Helena, looking up from her journal. At the bottom of her bed was curled a one-eyed cat, reveling in the choicest warm spot ever. Who'd have guessed? And Dewey? What happened to Dewey? The town fire truck couldn't get up the farm's driveway with a sheet of sheer ice at the bottom, and the barn burned to the ground. But the insurance company did not rule it an accident, not when the investigators discovered a suspicious gasoline can, the one that Pull had kicked into the tall grass off to the side of the barn. Further investigation led to the conclusion of suspected arson, which meant Dewey didn't get a cent. So what did Dewey do? He rented out the house to the recently married Rosie Carmine and her husband. They loved the lay of the land here, the sloping fields, the trees, and they hoped to buy the place one day. And Dewey left. He packed a few bags, drained his bank account, and took his baby Blue on a tour of the South. He might be nearing 40 years old, but he still had a lot to find out about himself. Maybe he'd look for Grady. Maybe he wouldn't. What he'd do next was anyone's bet. Life at the Bell farm was more certain. The Bells and the farm animals fell into a happy daily routine. They watched the land collect layer upon layer of snow until spring arrived on the farm. And there, in the late evenings and into the night, an owl flies low over the old horse pastures and fields. Like the owl constellation she was named after, you might not always see her outline in the darkening sky, but you can trust that she is up there among the stars, keeping careful watch.